Jeremiahs are getting their money off the top, and there's no way they would jeopardize the Golden Goose. Dan Sverdlin has played in that game and often steers juicy money their way. They're a lot lower limit games than Toby's, but they have plenty of billionaires there who will play you heads up for 60 grand. Rock bands, billionaire industrialists, everyone. They have a chef. The girls will show you their tits, and they'll rub your back. And I imagine that if you gave them enough money, they'd do other things. They have a rake. They pay me a finder's fee for sending someone up, and there's a lot of money locked up in a cabinet. But someone who organized one of the A-list Hollywood games gives Bloom her due. Molly was the queen of poker in L.A. Before Jeremiah or I or anyone else had games, he says. She was around longer than all of us. The big game, Toby's game, was hers, not Jeremiah's. He had his own games, and it started out as a no-rake game. But eventually she monetized that game, and she was run out of town for raking pots without the players knowing until someone figured it out. She was cutting out $300 on every pot and demanding tips of 10% of the winnings. I don't know how she's gotten out of this mess. And before we feel too bad for Toby Maguire, whose spidey sense seems to have failed him, the former rival gamekeeper reports he won $4 million in a game last week. He hasn't cooled down at all. Good for Toby. Might as well play his rush. So when I called the number, my source gave me a man named Jeremiah answered, and he responded to my mention of poker and a lawsuit. And when I identified myself as a journalist, he asked me to text message him my contact information, and he hung up. Jeremiah never called me back. Ronald Richards also confirmed the existence of Jeremiah, saying he was a competitor of Bloom's and not involved with the game in question. She would say she was in the same business as Jeremiah, though, he says. A poker room floor manager surveying a half-empty card room on a Saturday night at Hollywood Park Casino, where Maguire's played a number of times, tells me these high-end home games are definitely cutting into our action. When asked whether such home games are guilty of raking the pot, he grows suddenly animated. They're cutting thousands a night, he says. Thousands. Boys will be boys. And with DiCaprio recently topping, the Forbes list of highest paid actors, what does he make, $80 million a picture, something like that? And he and Maguire starring in an upcoming remake of The Great Gatsby, the classic Fitzgerald novel of jazz age, wealth, abandon, and the retroactive wages of sin, the tendency to blow off top dollar steam while towing the line of social propriety. It's not likely to stop anytime soon. After all, one of the perennial rules of show business has to be, if you want to have good friends, they're going to cost you. One of my bigger theories about poker, says Joe Stapleton, and this may be especially true for Toby, is that poker is a great way for dudes to hang out without really getting to know each other. And you don't really find out what people's hopes and dreams are, and you don't really get attached. I mean, you're buddies and you're chummy, but Toby is a super private dude. From what I understand, he doesn't give interviews, even though people think it's a big deal when a huge star plays in a poker tournament. I think for him, it's a social thing where he doesn't have to let people in. And circling back to Heli Namad, when I caught up with him in New York City a couple of weeks ago, he seemed happy, if not vindicated, that the Supreme Court, on the day he was released from probation, cleared the way for the legalization of sports betting. I'll bet he was happy. Thanks for joining me in the Gray Zone. I'll be yakking at you next week from here in Koreatown. Meantime, hey, break me off a piece of lettuce to help this show keep going. Would you? markebner59@gmail.com for PayPal and Venmo, or you can subscribe to the show at patreon.com. Dr. Dave, take us out with David Perry's The Left Coast. Welcome to L.A., brother.
Now we on Sunset